Alex Murdaugh found guilty on all counts. The once prominent attorney convicted of the double murder of his wife and son.
We're going to talk to the lead prosecutor in just a moment. First, Eva Pilgrim is at the courthouse in Walterboro, South Carolina. And Eva, you have an exclusive interview with one of the jurors.
That's right, George. That juror telling us what happened inside the deliberation room. Moments after that verdict was read, Alex Murdaugh turning back to his surviving son, mouthing, "I'm sorry, I love you." That once prominent attorney now convicted of murdering his wife and son.
Alex, did you kill your wife and son?
After 28 days, 75 witnesses, and less than 3 hours of deliberation, the jury finding Alex Murdaugh guilty of killing his wife Maggie and son Paul.
Guilty, 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 guilty.
Murdaugh appearing emotionless as the unanimous verdict was read. His surviving son Buster, who testified in support of his dad, putting his head in his hands. The defense asking for a mistrial, but the judge standing firm.
The jury has now considered the evidence for a significant period of time, and the evidence of guilt is overwhelming, and I deny the motion.
The disgraced attorney then taken out of the courtroom. Now, in an ABC News exclusive, juror Craig Moyer breaking his silence, revealing how the jury came to their decision.
When you first got in the room, you took a vote?
It was 2 not guilty, 1 not sure, and 9 guilty.
What was your vote?
Guilty.
From the start?
Yes.
Moyer says it didn't take long to get everyone on the same page.
We started deliberating, going through the evidence. Everybody was pretty much talking, and about 45 minutes later, after all our deliberating, we figured it out.
So it took basically 45 minutes for you guys to come to a decision? Probably
about 45, maybe an hour.
That's really fast.
Yeah, the evidence was clear.
He says it was this piece of video featuring Alex's voice at the crime scene moments before the murders that convinced him.
You hear his voice clearly, and everybody else could too.
Alex finally admitting it was him for the first time a year and a half after the murders.
When he said it was him, were you surprised?
I was very surprised.
Why?
That was his only savior right there.
For some people, it's so hard to understand how a husband, especially a father, would kill their own son. What made you so sure that he had?
His responses, how quick he was with the defense, and his lies, steady lies.
Did you feel like he was a liar?
A good liar, but not good enough.
Moyer also not convinced by moments like this. Alex appearing emotional on the stand.
What did you think when Alex Murdaugh took the stand?
I didn't think much of him.
Really?
Really. I didn't see any true remorse or any compassion or anything.
Even though he cried a lot on the stand.
He never cried.
He never cried. What do you mean by that?
All he did was blow snot.
Did you not see tears?
No tears.
How did you know he wasn't crying?
Because I saw his eyes. I was this close to him.
Moyer says he also didn't buy the defense's argument that Alex didn't have enough time to commit the crime and create an alibi.
The defense said there's no way he could have done all these things, clean everything up, get it all ready, and then go to his mom's and come back in that short amount of time.
I think there's just enough time.
All those factors leading the jury to hand over that guilty verdict.
If you really look at everything, it's all plain and clear.
And the judge delaying sentencing until this morning so that victims could make statements in court. And this morning, we will see Alex Murdaugh arriving to the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit. Guys.
Okay, Eva, thanks. That was a fascinating interview. We're joined now by the lead prosecutor, Creighton Waters. Mr. Waters, thank you for joining us this morning. 28 days in the trial, 70 witnesses, yet only 3 hours to reach a verdict. How do you explain that?
Well, I think I explained it with what you heard the jurors say. We presented a very compelling and strong case, and I think that it didn't take them long to figure this out. They looked him in his eyes, much as I've had the chance to do, and realized who this person really was. And I think that really was the final thing that led this jury to come to the right conclusion.
You finally did. You started out, though, with 2 jurors saying not guilty, 1 juror not sure. Was it that video that made the difference?
Absolutely, I think it was. That was something that the defendant could never account for. And I think, though, he was still hoping that that evidence wouldn't be as strong as it was. He initially claimed, because there was one young man who thought he heard him on the phone, and he said, well, he's got to be mistaken. I think he thought he could get around that. But as we continued to put up family and friends, people who were very close to him, none of whom who knew who he really was, it became very compelling, and I think that's what motivated him to try to take the stand and see if he could give one last closing argument to these jurors.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask.
As you heard, though, it didn't work.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. Were you surprised he decided to testify?
No, I thought that he would do it all along. I think that he's been able to, in this community, he's been able to talk his way out of accountability his entire life. And people like that are convinced in their own ability to do so. So the second the defense put in an exhibit in the case, I was pretty convinced he was going to testify. That's usually a pretty good indication. You
mentioned that he talked his way out of accountability his whole life. He was a skilled attorney. So what was your strategy going in on cross-examination?
Well, my strategy was to initially establish that and establish who he was. I thought it was very interesting that he would not even concede to these jurors that he was wealthy. And that was sort of the idea, was to get him talking about himself and about his life, but then to first of all, hammer home the financial aspects of this case and the many lies that he had told to people that trusted him, and then move into the specifics of his new story that he was now telling the world for the first time, at least publicly. And I think that's very compelling and ultimately was convincing to the jury.
Yeah, well, once you definitely establish that he's a liar, has been a liar for most of his career, that's really the kiss of death for a defense witness, right?
Well, I think it is, but it's not just being a liar. In this case, it was him being a liar about being at the scene with the victims just minutes before their cell phones went silent forever. And that is a very compelling lie. And of course, I made the argument to the jury, and the team did, and this was obviously a team effort, that what kind of reasonable father or husband would lie to law enforcement about such a crucial fact in that moment, and only one who really knew what had happened. But when you lie about being at the scene with the victims just minutes before the crime happened, that's pretty compelling evidence.
Are you now looking into the death of the Murdaugh's housekeeper?
Well, I can't comment on any pending investigations. This thing that has been investigated by SLED and the South Carolina State Grand Jury, which I'm fortunate to lead, is far-reaching into a lot of different areas. I can't comment on any pending investigation.
Sentencing this morning, what do you hope to see?
I'm sorry, say again?
The sentencing is this morning. What do you hope to see?
Well, this morning I hope to see a just sentence from the judge. I think that we will have a short presentation because the judge has heard it all. I'm not going to comment on the specifics of sentencing because it hasn't happened yet. But I do think that in the end we will have a just result for Maggie and Paul. Who, again, we cannot forget in all of this case, as long as it's gone on and as big as it's gotten, that that's what this is really about. And thankfully, they had a voice yesterday when the jurors spoke.
Creighton Waters, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.